I keep watching movies where I'm told that money isn't everything, that I shouldn't worry so much about money. And then I do that. And then all of a sudden, like you said before, it's like, if you guys want to know what's going to happen, if you lose your job, get ready because your girlfriend's going to say, we grew apart. That's the answer that's coming next, because that's the way a lot of times they have to rationalize it in their own head. If you cannot replace your dating life, your social life, and your job in 15 minutes, you don't have enough abundance. I want you to become the man that every one of your friends meets their boyfriend through. Every one of your friends should be getting their job through you, meeting their employees through you. You should be the center of the network. You should be the social hub of your entire friend group.
Michael, in your opinion, you speak with a lot of men these days. What's the biggest challenge that men are facing right now when it comes to succeeding in the dating marketplace?
Well, I think part of the issue is it's become more, women have become more selective because of the optionality that they perceive that they have due to dating apps and social media. But partially it's because these same men didn't go through some of the masculine trials that our parents and grandparents went through. And so as such, they can't change a tire. You know what I'm saying? They've never been in a fight. There's certain levels of, like when I was growing up, it was a great honor if you had a family member that joined the military. Now people just don't care as much. There's just certain rites of passage that men had previously, going hunting, whatever, that we just don't cherish as much anymore as a society. And as such, we don't have men that act as masculine. Instead, we tend to favor more of the Tekashi 6ix9ine or the Machine Gun Kelly type of a male archetype. That tends to be what's pushed. And so because of that, I think that's why men are having a hard time. It's not just that they're not getting good advice, they're deliberately getting bad advice. And that's what's causing men to have a harder and harder time when it comes to dating.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to pull apart there a little bit, but I'm curious your thoughts. You know, the research is out now, and I think it's pretty evident and clear that birth control changes. Obviously, we know it changes a woman's hormones, but with those hormonal changes come changes in what they're perhaps attracted to. How much of this archetype, you know, you gave a couple examples there of more of a feminine man, is due to society or due to actually what women are attracted to?
So it's one of these things where women consistently date the men that they complain about. This is a situation where they finally won the argument in the culture war argument, where they kept complaining about a certain type of guy, but they were dating that guy. And what's happened is the men who just don't listen, the men who don't listen to Disney, the men who don't listen to a big tech with their dating advice, they're the ones who do extremely well with women. But often they're called, misogynist, or people will say this person's controlling or grooming or something like that. That's kind of the language that's used. Now, don't get me wrong. There are men who are misogynists and there are men who groom women. I'm not saying that isn't the case. What's happened though is that seems to be like a catch-all phrase for any man who is, really good with women now. And so what's happened is that sort of like these traditional masculine features. And by the way, you guys can look it up if you think I'm exaggerating. The American Psychological Association said that traditional masculinity was harmful and called it a disorder. This is not me making this up. You can look it up yourself. You should also look up Jordan Peterson's comments on this. He said that it was scandalous. He said that it was anti-truth. That's probably the best way to describe it. The concepts that basically, when men are taught to be masculine, it makes them different from women. And that's the problem, is that society, more and more as we get further and further away from a survival scenario, there's an attempt to make men and women the same. And the more you try to make them the same, then things like the fact that men are, 200% stronger in their upper body, or the fact that men desire in general, like for instance, the median man would put him in the top 1% as far as desiring a variety of sexual partners, things like that. Men's desire for status, which far outpaces women. When you look at those kind of things, that makes us different. Making us different is not egalitarian. And that's why these type of beliefs are not pushed. The concept that men suffer is something that has never been embraced by academia. If you were to do right now, if you had a class in some college university basically saying how men suffer, just that's what you call the course. And it basically went over the fact that men are far more likely to suffer from mental illness. They're far more likely to be homeless. They're far more likely to lose their job. They're far more likely to be divorced, to be cheated on. There's so many other things that can happen that you can talk about. Being left in a divorce, 7 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women. if you were to go over this, men are far, 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 like something like 9 times more likely to take their own life. If you were to have a college course on this, the course would be obviously boycotted. No one would allow a course like that where you were talking about the concept of men suffering. Because academia refused to discuss the concept of men suffering, this is where things like the manosphere and the red pill movement, rightfully or wrongfully, came out and started addressing these issues because academia refused to. And Professor Richard Reeves of the Brookings Institute came out and said very eloquently on my show, he said, the reason why Andrew Tate happened was because we would not have a discussion about this, because we refused to accept the fact that men were suffering. And so that's kind of the where the situation is now. So what's happened, like I said, as men have had a necessity in society, or the men were a necessity in society because they were the ones that built the fortification and protected the tribe from predation. They protected the tribe from invaders. And now we've got to a point where those things that made men useful are no longer necessary in society. And by the way, to some extent, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that if I have a daughter, she can buy a Glock. It's good. I'm not complaining about that part of life. But what's happened instead is that now we just got into a society where it's like those masculine traits that were necessary that men had. Like, for instance, we talk about upper body muscle, like strength. Men are far more aggressive, assertive. Men are far more ambitious. And this largely has to do with the fact that they have 17 times as much testosterone as women. Those things are just not being, they're not being rewarded anymore. And so we have what Richard Reeves might call a group of surplus men. When 60% of college enrollees are female, what happens is those women start to make more and more money. And what you would expect is, as women make more money, they should not need to desire men who make more money. But instead, we see the opposite is the case. Women on average, when surveyed, say they like about 1.65 to 1. So they want their man to make about 65% more than them on average. So if a woman makes 100 grand, she wants a man who makes 165 grand. Well, I mean, if you do the math, and only, I believe, 17% of the population makes $100,000 a year. I think if you make $134,000 a year, that puts you in the top 10%. That's 10% of men that these women are now competing for, especially if they went to college, which more and more are going to college. They're making better livings, and they want men who make more money than them. Then the pool of men that they have to choose from becomes smaller and smaller. And the majority of men, like a lot of the guys who are going to be watching this, a lot of guys who've been swiping on dating apps for years and having no luck, you're just wondering why this isn't working out for you. And this is part of the reason why. It's just it is a dilemma of perceived choice. A lot of times we think we have choices that we don't have. Like, for instance, going to a used car lot, seeing all these cars, like seeing some that you can't even afford and not being able to make a decision. That's what some women are going through whenever they go on dating apps and they left swiped on 500-600 men. In their mind, they're like, well, I could get these guys to date me. And the reality is they could get them for short-term access, but not for long-term access. And I think the discrepancy between the two is part of the reason why you're seeing a lot of women make so many bad decisions. And I think conversely, you could say the same thing about pornography with men. That's causing men to make horrible decisions in their life. And then finally, I haven't even gotten to this, just this horrible obesity epidemic that we have in this country. The obesity epidemic is part of the reason why it's so funny, because we talk about this super high divorce rate in this country. I would say the number one reason why the divorce rate is so high, it's not from infidelity. Whenever I say that to women, they're like, well, it's because men cheat. It's like, no, I actually think the majority of the divorce rate actually has to do with obesity. I think that's a massive problem in this country that's just getting progressively worse. The further and further we get away from a survival scenario, and the easier it is for us to just inhale calories. You can go on Postmates and have you can be on a minimum wage diet, on minimum wage salary, and order enough Oreos to kill yourself. We're just like, we can order calories. We can order more calories in one day delivered to our apartment with like a triple cheese Whataburger than an entire Inuit tribe could have the number of calories they could have in an entire week. That's the world that we live in now. So as we get further and further away from a survival scenario, we have more men that become less useful because of the attributes they have are not as useful in society. And as women make more and more money, they now have a dilemma of choice because they're choosing a smaller and smaller cohort of men to choose from. They're picking from a smaller and smaller cohort of men. And then it's so funny because you'll go on these dating shows or panel shows and you'll hear women complaining about men who cheat, when you actually find out that the number of men who cheat is extremely small, especially when you're dealing with lower status men or lower income men. So I just think that's the place where we're at now. And because of that, women price, Orion Teraband has one of the best explanations of this. Women price sex as, I want commitment before I have sex. Men price sex at, I want sex before I get commitment. And because the price of sex is so different between the two genders, never the two shall meet. And we're seeing the lowest rate of fertility, the lowest rate of marriage, and the lowest rate of people just having sex in general at any point we've ever seen. This generation shows more, like, i.e., thirst trap photos and OnlyFans and Instagram. They show more than any other generation. They actually have sex the least of any generation.
Wow, there's a lot there, Michael, to pull apart, man. That take on divorces and obesity being a driver, man. I've never heard that perspective on it. But as you're kind of explaining it, it's like, man, it's so true. I heard a wild.
Are you ever going to tell your marriage therapist the reason why I left her was because she's fat? Are you ever going to say that?
Me personally, probably. I probably would never let it get there. Like, I'd probably tell her as she's packing the weight on, hey, you're getting a little too out of fat. Like, you're getting a little too.
The reason why we don't see it, because the top three indicators are, I believe it's infidelity, a lack of, help with the household tasks, and then men losing their jobs. I think those are like the top three as far as reasons why women file for divorce. But I actually think obesity is in there too. And I just think a lot of women just don't want to say, I left my husband because he got fat.
Well, it comes into, how many women say he's changed. He's not the man I fell in love with. He lost his drive. He lost his motivation. A byproduct, a guy losing his job probably stems from a series of poor choices and behaviors stacked up over time. As the weight gets put on, you have a little less drive to go to work. Then you're not showing up. You're not staying late. You're not putting in the extra effort. Now you take a pay cut. Now you lose a job. All this time you were putting 40, 50, 60 pounds on. So I definitely can see how it's playing a huge role. I've never actually.
But Frank, I keep watching movies where I'm told that money isn't everything, that I shouldn't worry so much about money. And then I do that. And then all of a sudden, like you said before, it's like, if you guys want to know what's going to happen, if you lose your job, get ready, because your girlfriend's going to say, we grew apart. That's the answer that's coming next, because that's the way a lot of times they have to rationalize it in their own head. And it's the same thing. I just think that one of the main differences, men and women, we're both very complicated creatures. It's just that men are a little bit closer to their attraction triggers. We actually know what our attraction triggers are. If you like a big butt, men will say they like a big butt. For women, they will literally say, I like a guy who's nice, but you keep seeing them date Chad, the male stripper. And they're like, but wait to say, I thought you said you like a guy who's nice. Or they say, I like guys who are smart. I love it when women say, I love men who read. And then I see the guys that they choose to date. And it's like, this guy hasn't read a book since he got out of prison. No, he hasn't read a book since he got out of prison and got that tattoo sleeve. He hasn't read a single book. And you sit there and listen to them keep talking about they're sapiosexual. So I'm saying it doesn't make women bad. It's just for some reason, women seem to be a little like one or two deviations away from what their actual attraction triggers are. Whereas men, we know exactly what our attraction triggers are because we're visual. And so I think because of that, that's why you see some of these panel shows where women will say something and then do something else.
Yeah, I want to hear more about this perceived choice of options. I think is kind of the language that you use around it. It's once again, it's a new thing I've heard here just from you today in these first couple of minutes that we've been on here.
The perceived dilemma of choice.
Perceived dilemma of choice. You talked about this generation posting more thirst traps, OnlyFans, all of this. Obviously, this is women seeking and garnering attention online. So is that playing a role in their perception of the options that they have? Is like, I can go online and get 1,000 guys to like this photo, but then I step out into the real world, that same experience isn't going to happen.
Frank, I want to do something. I want a disclaimer real quick. When I talk about these topics, I criticize men exactly as much as I criticize women. It's just when I criticize men, it's never controversial. When I tell men that they're fat and that's the reason why women don't like them, they generally go to the gym. That's it. If you try to do that, if you're a female dating coach and you say, hey, honey, you're fat, you got to lose some weight, she fires you and then calls HR. Like that's the difference. It just seems to be like a level of like offensiveness that happens between the two genders. So I'm going to make an example of doing this right now. Men have a perceived dilemma of choice when they watch pornography. Pornography makes their brain, it changes the dopamine structure in their brain. And they start believing that they can get women like this. And if you've ever seen men shooting their shot, sliding in the DMs and saying like horribly pornographic and perverted things to women, this comes from watching porn. This comes from this unrealistic belief that women are like the women they see in these pornographic films. And so that's where they get a perceived dilemma of choice, where there's like, they don't want to, there's one study, it's at the end of the book. The Evolution of Desire, somewhere in the middle maybe, where he talks about the concept of it, when men keep seeing non-contextualized images of attractive women or sexualized images of women, they start finding their own partner more and more unattractive. Let me say that one more time. As men watch more porn, they start to find their partner more and more unattractive. Got it? Okay. I want to make sure everybody understands I'm critical of men here. Now, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Let's watch what happens when this goes viral. The opposite thing is when women are on dating apps or when women are on Instagram, they get so much attention from lower status men. And ladies, if you want to know what low status men look like, they're the ones who leave you the heart eye emojis who don't even know you. You've never messaged them before. They're giving you a ton of attention because men give away their attention. It lowers their value. So these low status men are giving them massive amounts of attention. And let's say they go on OnlyFans and they start getting paid for their physical attractiveness, and they start pushing the limit. They start doing more and more lascivious behavior on there, and then they start getting attention. What happens is women, I think, to a certain extent, do not understand the level. If you're like a girl who's an exotic dancer, she probably understands this, but like they don't understand the level to which men will lie about giving up long-term optionality in order to gain short-term sex. Meaning, you and I, as a man, if we had a daughter and there was some guy coming around trying to date our daughter, we know what's going on in his head because we're men. We understand. It's like he's trying to fuck above everything else. We know that's the case, but we don't. But I think women often they don't understand the level, the extent to which men would be willing to lie in order to have sex. And so what happens is they get right swipe, and they might have 100 or 200 matches or 1,000 matches on a dating app and think that all of these men, or at least a portion of these men, are interested in long-term dating options, when in reality, none of them are. Your decision to get the tattoos in between your boobs and the fucking nose ring and all the piercings and you become overweight. Men are still interested in you for short-term sexual access, but they're not interested in you at all long-term. And they come on my show. I see them all the time. And they start telling me stories about, no, high status men want to date me and I've been engaged 7 times and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you've been engaged 7 times. That's it. Like, dudes are willing to spend money. They're willing to do anything to have sex with you, but no one wants to lock you down. And the next thing you know, by the time they come to the realization of what's going on, they're 32, 33. And then it's like they have one of the strangest things that happens, Frank, is another, I believe it was Ryan Terabin who told me this. As women get older, they actually get more picky, which actually makes the whole price of sex thing even more disparaging. Or more of a gap in between the price of sex between men and women. So that's when we get into like just crazy numbers where, you're going to have, it's really interesting that the age of first marriage in the United States is 29. And the reason why that is because that is the point at which women still have the advantage. So they want to cash out of the sexual marketplace, find a man that they can marry very quickly at 29 and then move forward. Once after 29, the higher status men, the guys who do make $200,000 a year, very good looking, higher status guys, they're not looking for a wife who's 32, 33, 34. They want to have children. And so because of that, that's when we get into a situation where a lot of them, it hits them like a ton of bricks. It's like, wait a second, these guys who are interested in me when I'm 23, they still want to have sex with me when I'm 33. They're just not interested in committing long term. And it's one of the wildest things because 2 of my best friends are females and they're both 38 years old. One of them, she's been married for 10 years and the other one, she's been single for 10 years. And I watch the 2 of them and it's very clear. Like, one of them is like, yeah, I'm really glad I locked this guy down 10 years ago. And the other one is like, I don't know what I was thinking, because she's a playmate, because she's so attractive. She can keep it. She's going to be 44 years old and she's still going to attract a lot of men, but she's going to have a hard time getting certain men to take her seriously because of how old she is. And it is an unfortunate double standard of biology, but it's still true.
What role, if any, and responsibility do men play in this? You gave that example of the woman that's been engaged 7 times, right? I think she came on your show and she's talking about how she's attracting all these high status men. Here's 7 guys that are willing to not just invest their time and energy, but actually take this to, hey, I'm gonna start this process of going down towards marriage. Now, obviously, they wake up, they get out of it, but there's got to be an element of men taking responsibility in some of this perceived attraction as well.
So I've said this before. There are 3 genders: high status men, women, and low status men. High status men
Say that again, 3 genders?
There's 3 genders: high status men, women, and low status men. These are the 3 genders. High status men and low status men have absolutely nothing to do with each other neurologically. They have different number of lifetime sexual partners. They have different life expectancies, different levels of happiness. They have a different amount of children, vastly different incomes. And so there's a massive difference. There's a book called The Winner Effect you can read, which goes over the neurology of being able to win. High status men have like, if you want to, when women say men, oh, I can't stand it, all men cheat. What they're talking about is high status men who cheat. All low status men don't cheat. They don't have the option to cheat. The guy who's the assistant manager at the fucking, Walmart in Des Moines, Iowa, he doesn't have the option to cheat. He barely has the option to meet any women whatsoever. So the vast majority of men are not in that situation. The guy who manages the McDonald's in Waco, Texas, is just not cheating. He just doesn't have anyone to cheat with. So the main issue there is when you see these three genders, when you say, what are the high status men doing? They're taking advantage of all of this chaos that's been created by social media and dating apps, etc. These high status men are the ones getting swiped on. The top 10% of men on dating apps get 63% of the right swipes. They're having a great time. There's a group of men at the top. Like when you consider this, right? Let's say the bottom third of men. So there's been different studies that show this. There's one that shows a third of men under the age of 24 haven't had sex in a year. There's another one where it was up to, it's not this number, it's not this high anymore, but it was up to about 28% of men under the age of 30 had zero sexual partners in the last year. So let's just say, for sake of argument, the bottom third of men have had 0, 1, or 2 sexual partners in their life. Then they say the mean is about 7. Let's just say the average guy in his entire life has had 7 sexual partners. Then in the top 5%, we should see something like 12 or 13 sexual partners. We don't. In the top 5%, we see 50. And then when the top 1%, Frank, we see 150. So 0, 7, 150. Does that sound equitable to you? Does that sound linear? Or does it sound like a small group of men at the top are like, have 7 dates a week, and there's a massive group of men at the bottom who are really sad subscribing to your girl's OnlyFans? That's where the world has gotten to. And the reason why that is, and the reason why fewer and fewer women are settling down, and we have the lowest rate of marriage in the history, in recorded history. And the part of the reason why that is because of, like I said before, the perceived choice and the optionality that women perceive that they have that they don't actually have. It's really hard. You'll meet these women, they're beautiful. They're in their 30s. They're stunning. They're in really good shape. And they just keep waiting for this perfect guy to come along and just don't realize you have that perfect guy. You left him when you were 25. You just weren't interested. You wanted to date Chad Thundercock and fucking Brock the bartender. You wanted to date Victor the VIP host, and you just left the good men back there. And that's essentially what happened. So that's where we are. We're just in a wash of options, or we're in a wash of perceived options. And as a result, none of us are getting married. None of us are really hooking up.
Yeah, those stats around the dating apps and the swipes and the sexual partners, man, that's like Pareto's principle, universal law, like just at play, right? You know,
but it wasn't always like this. When you have encouraged monogamy. So for instance, in India, you have arranged marriages. Because the men there have arranged marriages, you actually see the men in the bottom third all have at least one wife. But because of that, they never work on the skill set to meet women. And so because of that, that's when you have the Indian men going, oh, I would like to see Bob's and Vagine. Where does that come from? That comes from men having zero calibration. By the way, it was KJ, Shidich. I forgot the guy's last name. He's a very famous Indian dating coach. He came and he just did my show recently, and he was explaining all of this to me. And it was just like, we don't have the same issue of like men being virgins in their 30s because we have arranged marriage in my country. And so like the high rates of arranged marriage. You asked a question before, Frank, and I never got to the answer. The answer was, what can men do different, or where are men messing out? It's like men do not, again, this is the problem, is you'll see people go on shows just like this and they'll start complaining about women. I have no complaints about women whatsoever, or about the fact of my position in the world. It is a privilege that when I have a family, that I am the man who grabs the shotgun and goes downstairs when there's an intruder. That is a privilege. I do not shun that privilege. It was a privilege that I got to serve for 7 years in the U.S. military. That is a privilege. I don't look at it and be like, I heard Mia Khalifa the other day saying something like, when you join the military, that's worse than porn because you're giving your body to the government. And I was like, she can believe whatever she wants. I didn't join the military for me. I joined it for her. I joined it for your freedom. That's why I joined. So it was a privilege for me to do that. It is a privilege for me to protect, provide, and provision for my family. I do not see it as a burden. And do I know that I belong to the gender that is far more expendable? Absolutely, I know that. And I don't shun it whatsoever, because I love being a man, and I don't have any issue with this whatsoever. It's not a complaint. It's just one of these situations where, like, you're playing a sport and all of a sudden one year they change the rules and the next year they change the rules. And I just want to know what the rules are. That's all I want to know, is what the rules are. And my job, as far as being a performance coach, is I keep trying to explain to men what the new rules are. There is no dating without an Instagram now. If you're a normal dude and you don't have an IG, you're going to get dunked on by the guys who do. It's just a matter of fact. Unless you have a job where like you're just surrounded by women all the time, you're just going to have a hard time. You're just really going to have or you're outrageously good looking and you do well on a dating apps. You're in the top 4.5% of men. You don't need an Instagram there. Or you're a billionaire, or you won an Academy Award, or you're a famous actor. You don't need an Instagram. 99% of men need some way to a sort of a receptacle of their own status and value so that women can investigate. And when they do that, then you have a chance, because the number one dating app in the world is Instagram. It is. It's not even questionable. It's by 3 orders of magnitude over any other dating app. It's Instagram. And that's the place where we got now. So what is that? What is that? That's a new change in the rules. That's a new software update that a lot of times I have a client, guy just joined Men of Action yesterday. He was married for 16 years and just got divorced. And I was explaining to him, like, there's been massive software updates in dating since you got divorced. And it's my job to teach you to update your software. That's what I'm going to do in this program, is give you the software update that you need to understand why she's responding to this and not to this, why you keep getting it put in the friend zone, and why she doesn't see you as a viable option. When you really think about it, Frank, it is really insulting. When a woman rejects a man, she's basically saying, you don't get to breed. I don't think that your genetics should be passed along to the next generation. It's rough. That's why men take it so personally. But the reality is, rejection is not personal. We think of it as painful. It is certainly not permanent. And once you have enough rejections, then eventually, like my man Orion says, they become data points. And it's a really, really great opportunity for you to learn.
Yeah, it's an interesting take there too, man. I'm not sure I would fully agree. This is more your area of expertise in the dating sphere. I would encourage a lot of men not to go onto Instagram to find their partners. Maybe we can get into a discussion.
No. Frank, don't go onto Instagram to find your partners. When you find someone you like, the first thing they're going to do, Frank, is check your Instagram. No, I'm not saying don't go look for a job on LinkedIn. What I'm saying is, if you're looking for a job and you don't have a LinkedIn, it looks fucking fishy as shit. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so your Instagram needs to be fleshed out. I do not recommend guys go looking for a partner on Instagram. What I do recommend is people start throwing huge events so that you can create a social circle so that you can meet your partner, but you do instigate those events often through social media apps.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Well, I don't want to spend this entire conversation in doom and gloom and just diagnosing the problem. I want to maybe get tactical and kind of give the audience, the guys that are out there that are maybe like in this lower 80, how do we kind of move them to the 20? So I want to go back to these 3 genders. You talked about high status men and then low status men. Can we kind of break these apart a little bit? And even you explain maybe like the neurology of the difference between the two. So let's get into kind of breaking that down a little bit and see if we can get tactical with the guys that maybe can help shift it. Is it possible for a guy to go from low status to high status?
Yeah, it was definitely possible. In fact, every man does this. Unless you're born rich, extremely good looking, or born famous. Like Donald Trump Jr. didn't have to go from low status from high status, but most of us did, right? It's a rite of passage as men. But what is that rite of passage? So that rite of passage is, do you watch Hard Knocks ever? You ever watch Hard Knocks?
Is that the football?
Yeah, football show. Anyway,
yeah, I'm familiar with it. I'm not a big sports guy, but
there's a famous thing every year in Hard Knocks where the rookies have to get up and sing in front of the veterans. And what is that? That's a rite of passage so that you can be included in our group of men where we're highly accomplished individuals, right? So that essentially is one of the things that makes high status men and low status men. High status men are leaders. They can get groups of men to come together and form coalitions, groups of men and women, and they are the ones who start companies. They lead teams. That's one of the things that high status men do. The other thing is they're in shape. They're more. They have the main difference is an abundance mindset. The main difference is an abundance mindset. High status people also in general want to see their friends succeed. That's another thing that's very, very different. Dan Bilzerian just came out with his new course called Sigma Society. And one of the things he goes, the only thing better than me get laid is helping my friends get laid. So that's what he's doing in his course. It's like trying to help other people. What do high status men do? Like they're the ones who continually educate themselves. They have an abundance mentality. They look for mentors. They learn from those mentors so that they can get better. But success leaves clues. They're willing to find those clues. They're willing to drop their ego, see those clues, and then go do the things to become successful. Just imagine if you joined an Amazon FBA course trying to make millions of dollars doing Amazon FBA, but you wouldn't listen to your instructor because you think you know better. If you've ever met people that are super hard-headed and they're poor and they do not listen to whenever you give them instruction. These people, they tend to have a problem with their weight as well. What is it? It's ego causing you to not listen to mentors and not try to learn from other people. High status people, what they do is, again, they have an abundance mentality. I can always get more and I can always learn more and I don't know everything. I don't know what I don't know. I need to shut the fuck up and listen to mentors so that I can level up in different areas of my life, whether it's health, wealth, relationships, communication, networking, or dating. I need help in those places. And someone who knows more than me can help me with those things. But that, again, that requires you to supplant, that requires you to transcend the ego in order for you to do that. And I'm always trying to create opportunities. High status people, another thing they are, especially men, are problem solvers. Whenever like tonight, I'm going to dinner with my buddy, Jeremy Lee Minor. Do you know who he is? He's a real popular sales. Yeah. So Jeremy and I, we're going to dinner tonight. And whenever we talk, it's not on purpose. All we do is solve problems for each other. The same thing whenever I'm with Wes Watson, whether I'm with Justin Waller, or whenever I'm with Orion Taraban, whether I'm with when I was with Casey Zander last week, like whenever I'm with these guys, all we're doing is solving problems for one another. Casey is probably in a couple of days giving me information that's going to make me millions of dollars with my business because this guy is so successful. Like just learning from these guys. Justin Waller has helped me so much with my business. Cole Gordon has helped me with my business. Jeremy Miner's helped me with my business. Like these guys, why is it? We go to dinner, we have these discussions, and I listen to them. I know that they're high stat. These guys are clearing $1 million a month, like a profit. And when I listen to them, it's just if I can just shut the fuck up and listen to them, I will gain so much knowledge that will help me personally. But I have to transcend my ego to be able to listen. This is what high status people do. The other thing that's really main difference, Frank, if you listen to there's a lot of CEOs, billionaires, you listen to these extremely highly efficient individuals. They'll talk about reading. They'll talk about the number of books they read, a book a week, stuff like that. I try at a minimum to get through 40 books a year. I don't understand how people are not addicted to reading at this point in life. Like the amount of wealth and the amount of success you can generate from reading about the experiences of other people it's astronomical. It's geometric. It's incredible. So I don't know why more people don't do that. That's something that I've seen the higher status people do is they tend to read more. They tend to be, like I said before, there's a sheep, sort of a follower class, and then there's like a leadership class. The leadership class in this country, if you want to know the number one thing they do different, is that they have mentors and they read. They read and read and read. That's the main difference. So if you want to know the difference between the two, I'd say that's the number one difference is those things. Not all high status people are good with women, though. That is something I will tell you. A lot of times, really wealthy men are targets because they don't know how to deal with the opposite sex.
I'm curious as to why. We'll circle back to that, but I love the take on high status individuals are leaders, but it's really their ability to get their ego out of the way or get out of the way of their ego. And I think that's counterintuitive to what anybody that doesn't operate in those circles thinks. If you see somebody that's highly successful, right, clearing $1 million a month, a lot of the guys that you just dropped names with there, yourself included, people would see you and be like, this guy's full of himself, prideful, very ego driven. But you said the key is actually the ability to get out of the way, where the people that are not succeeding, their ego is what prevents them from actually breaking through.
I'll give you some examples, some really clear examples here. Number one, if I say, hey man, I'm going to dinner with Ty Lopez next week, a high status person or a very successful person is like, cool, what did you learn from him? A low status person is going to say, why did you name drop him? Make sense? Because he lives in a scarcity mentality. That's the number one difference I've seen. A high status person is going to be like, hey man, I saw you just cleared $1 million a month. Congratulations. A low status person is going to write YouTube comments or something anonymous on Twitter or TikTok and be like, yo, bro, this is all make believe. You're a scam artist. That's what a low status person is going to do. High status people, if you ever want to do this, Frank, sit around a group with a bunch of very successful people and ask them, hey guys, how many TikTok comments did you guys leave on other people's accounts this week? And they're like, I don't fucking know how to leave a TikTok comment. I took my family out on our yacht. I don't have time to leave TikTok comments. It's like a low status people. One of the things they do is like, they think that leaving the TikTok comment is just like, anytime you see somebody when they leave those messages, like the very personal ones, not the ones that say, hey, your audio is bad. That's actually a good criticism. But the ones that actually just like leave personal comments, the reason why they're doing is that because internally they're hurt. And so they're trying hurt people. Yeah. Projection, hurt people. And so when you see that, what's going on is like, they don't recognize that the reason why they're doing this is you hurt them. You're attacked when you're like, let's just say I have a guy who's like 5'6" and he's Indian and he just thinks he cannot do good with women. And I have more than 20 clients that are 5'6" and Indian and they're crushing it with women. What happens is these results can't be real. Therefore, what I'm doing is fake. So you've hurt my ego. Therefore, I have to leave nasty comments because what you're doing hurts my narrative about life. And it also, my victim mentality is, oh, well, I can't do well with women because of my ethnicity and my height. and you're trying to crush that objection. And because you're trying to crush that objection, fuck you. I don't want to hang, like, I'm going to write these nasty messages about you. So you can know that. It's just really difficult that they don't understand that their victim mentality caused them to write the message, but the message also causes their victim mentality, which causes them to stay in a low status mind state.
Yeah, it's a self-defeating cycle, man. Mike, I'm curious your journey kind of into this space. I think a lot of guys that operate in our world here, there either was a defining moment in their life, a wake-up call, a rock bottom. They reach the top of it. Rock bottom, rock top, right? It's usually like the guy hits the bottom of the barrel. He's living in the gutter. He's like, I found my way out of that. Or he reached the top of the mountain. He's like, I've achieved all the financial success in the world. And I realized like this wasn't about, now I need to spread a message and kind of help others. What was your journey into kind of like this online content creation, self-development, growth, MOA mentoring? Like, can you walk through like your personal journey there?
Yeah. I lost my father in a drunk driving accident in 2006. He was hit by a drunk driver. And then right after that, 6 weeks later, I was deployed to the Middle East for the first time. And when I was there, one of the things that happens when you deploy to the Middle East, or I imagine the same thing if somebody goes to prison, is you realize the world just goes on without you. And I watched my girlfriend find someone else while I was gone to the Middle East. And I watched it on Facebook, right? It's 2006. And I watched the Dallas Mavericks blow an 0-2 lead to the Miami Heat and losing the NBA championship. It was a bad time for me. It was one of these things where, and I tell this to people all the time, that pain is there for a reason. That pain, that loss that you feel. Let's just imagine you're overweight. Because of that, your girlfriend cheats on you. You think it's terrible your girlfriend cheated on you. But that pain that you're feeling right now is a survival mechanism that finally gets your fat ass in the gym and saves your life and puts another 20 or 30 years on your life expectancy because that pain finally got you in the gym. For me, there was a girl that I was briefly seeing during COVID. We broke up and I thought everything was amicable. I started seeing someone else. She was not happy about it. And so she started spreading rumors about me, which ended up getting me fired from a job. Frank, that's why I actually started my podcast. I started my podcast because I made up my mind no one will ever make a narrative about me that I can't answer for ever again. And I started my podcast because that had nothing to do with Men of Action, had nothing to do with my business. I started the podcast because I was like, no, I am going to write my own narrative from this point forward. And that's basically where that happened. It is the pain that you feel, that pain of you take your shirt off and you notice nobody looks at you and they all look at this other guy. That first time that happens, the pain of getting cheated on, the pain of losing your job, the pain of like having to walk up a set of stairs and you can't breathe, the pain of like being embarrassed, because some guy wanted to fight you and you just like ran away. That pain of embarrassment, that pain causes change. You need to listen to it. It's one of these things where it's like you're talking to a personal trainer. He's talking to you about how much it costs. And you're just like, I don't want to do this. I want to listen to my inner bitch, like what David Goggins talks about. I'm going to listen to my inner bitch instead. When in reality, that pain that you feel, that embarrassment you feel, I could just keep my shirt on. I don't need to lose all this weight. That pain, that pain, you have to listen to it because that is what affects change. And so that, to me, I can't express that to you guys anything worse. Like when you feel that pain, go deep into it and then say, I will never let this happen to me again. I will never be put in a situation where where I allow financial predators to take advantage of me in my company or in my dating life. I will never be put in a situation again where I'm embarrassed to take my shirt off. I will never be put in a situation again where like, I'm not sure if I have enough money to pay for dinner. I will never be put in a situation again where I let my employees run the company and they don't allow me to lead. I will never be put in a situation again where my partner embarrasses me in public. I will never be put in a situation. You have to, that pain that you have to feel that pain. And that's what causes change.
Dude, I was 13 years old, man. I felt the pain for the first time. Like I talk about this a lot on the podcast here, man. I was 13. I had a cousin I was very close to. He was a year older than me. I spent the summer at his house in South Florida. 13-year-old boy hanging out with a 14-year-old boy, brings 14, 15-year-old girls around. I remember being at the pool, somewhat overweight. Like I had to buy my jeans in the Husky department when I was a kid growing up. Didn't want to take my shirt off. And I got picked and razzed that entire summer for being the only kid at the pool that would not take a shirt on. Mike, I went back, 14 years old, found the Gold Gym in Land O'Lakes, Florida, changed my life, went on to, obviously compete in bodybuilding and everything else kind of been history.
Frank, think about what you just said. Everything you just said was, oh my God, Frank, I can't believe this is what typical modern day psychologists would say to you, Frank. Frank, I can't believe you went through that trauma. That's terrible. Those boys should be punished, expelled from school for bullying you. Wait, no, you missed the point. It changed my life. I went to the gym. That pain fueled me. No, we need to stop all bullying, all roughhousing, all of it. No, again, I don't think you should. Definitely the type of physical hazing that was going on in college and universities, that was too much. But like you should be able to tape the freshman to the fucking goalpost. You should be able to do. The freshmen should carry your pads. There should be a level of hazing. It's called the United States Marine Corps. You should be able to do. There should be a rite of passage for men. That rite of passage for us then causes us to affect change. And that's a sacrifice that we give to be part of a group that is stronger than us. When we do that, that's when men become their best masculine selves. And we're trying everything we can to get as far away from that as possible. Then you can keep doing it as much as you want. I'm going to keep watching the NFL. I love MMA. I love going to the gym every day. I still like watching men compete with other men. I still like watching like boxing, etc. And I still like being part of a group where me and other men and women are working together to accomplish goals. I think that that's the apex of human existence. And we need to encourage that. Competitive nature is fantastic. It raises a rising tide raises all ships. The entire world is better when people are more competitive and they take accountability for their own actions. The entire world is better whenever we exist in a world like that.
We talked about it. You talked about it when you were giving the examples of high status and low status, that high status individuals will get out of their own way and they'll go through an initiation. They'll surrender to learning through another individual. Like, it is a part of becoming a high value, high status man and or woman. It's having this initiation journey that you go through. Sometimes it happens in teenage years. Now that's obviously been taken out of society. So boys and young men need to find their own way. But I think that's a big reason as to why when we look at men that are in their 20s, they're as weak, feminized, low status as they could be, because they didn't have to go through the bullying, the initiation, the things that you and I did growing up.
They were like roughhousing doesn't happen anymore. Like, dude, you go outside and kids are out there like slap boxing or like just pretending beating each other up in wrestling. Nobody was fucking killing each other. We were fucking around. But like, you can't even do that anymore. They're just like, oh, they're picking on no, man. It's just there was a certain level where I got picked on when I was a freshman in high school. And you know what that did? It caused me to try to get the strongest bench press of anybody on my football team because of what happened to me when I was a freshman. That's not bad. I know for some people it seems like it's bad. It's not. I know some people are out there that are very sensitive. But the problem is those sensitive men, we need insensitive men to put out the fires. We need insensitive men to serve in our infantry. We need insensitive, violent men to be part of our police force and to be part of our military. It's just the way the world works. We need studious, fastidious men to construct our buildings. These are the things that we need to reward so society continues to move forward. Those are the things that we used to reward. We don't anymore. And so because of that, that's why you see so many men that are like, no, that's bullying. Like, by the way, actual bullying is different. Bullying is like a kid who weighs 40 pounds more than you is like beating you up and taking your lunch money. That's a crime. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, there's popular kids and unpopular kids, and you think that just somehow we need to legislate that all of us are popular. The world's never going to work like that. The quarterback of the football team is still going to date the head cheerleader. He's still going to take your girl. We don't need to do anything to legislate that. You don't wish the game was easier. Wish that you were better. That's what happens. And we've lost that. And that is what makes this experience of being a man so great, is that you do experience these failures. You get picked over. When you get to a point where you've dealt with so much rejection, you take your credit card out, you spit on it, and you charge it to the fucking game because it doesn't bother you anymore. It's just a data point now. And you get better and better and better. And you look back and like, man, I have some of my clients in their early 20s. I'm teaching them shit that I learned 25 years ago. And I'm so jealous of them because they're not going to have to make the mistakes that I made. They're going to not going to have to make any of these mistakes that I made. These guys are going to have a fucking scalable business by 27, and they're going to have the girl of their dreams chasing after them by the time they're 28. And I'm just like, man, you're so lucky. You don't have to make these mistakes that I made before. But I look back at this journey and I'm just so grateful that I got to go through this journey, these hardships. Man, oh man, I'm just so, what a privilege it was for me to serve in the U.S. military. Like, I don't want to take that away. I was like, it's horrible. You had to go through that. I bet they bullied you. Yeah, they fucking bullied me. Yes, they bullied me. There were officers in my squadron who did not like me very much and picked on me. Yes, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. There were guys on my football team who treated me like shit. I wouldn't trade it for anything. When you first go to jiu-jitsu class, the fucking teacher wipes the floor with you. because you don't know how to get out of the guard position. You don't know what you're doing. You're out of breath. They beat the crap out of you. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because it makes you stronger. That's the whole point. And we just gotten to this point where it's like, well, no, society can protect us. Our machines and the internet, and we don't need to be bullied or go through any of these stresses. And the reality is that's just not how the world works. That just isn't. And it's not a very attractive way to be as a man.
Yeah, let's talk about confidence. I agree 100% with all of that. A guy that's out there though, he's mid to late 20s. He grew up in this, soft culture. It's been beaten out of him. The masculinity has been ripped out of his soul. He's had all this defeat now in life. And when he looks himself in the mirror, like he doesn't see somebody that's proud to be. Like his confidence in who he is, very, very low. I love what you said there, man. You're helping these young men that you work with build the business, but then become the prize in the relationship. How do we get more men to see themselves as the prize? So when you do throw that line out there, she rejects you. It's like, that's her loss. Like the next one's I'm the prize in the relationship. Yeah.
So one of the things that happens as men, is that there's a lot that we have to do to become maximally attractive. Just consider the yacht, the guy and the girl on the yacht. How'd the guy get on the yacht? He had to fail at business 3 or 4 times, take out loans, eventually repay those loans, screw up in business several times, spend several $100,000 probably learning from different people like Russell Brunson and Alex Hormozy, whatever it is. Like he had to go through trials and tribulations, hire and fire people, go through all the stress. And eventually he had a scalable business. It took off. And now he has the money to buy the yacht. Okay. Then let's figure out, how did the girl get on the yacht? She was hot and 21 and she got invited by some club promoter. That's how the guy and the girl get on the yacht. For men, there's so many things that are baked in for us. That's why men are most attractive. Like men get their most right swipes on dating apps around the age of 38. Women do between 23 and 25. And so when you see that, there's just so much more that goes into making a man attractive. And so you have to do, what was the original question? I think I'm getting off topic.
Reframing of men seeing themselves as the prize within a relationship.
Yeah. So the reason why they don't see themselves as the prize is because they have to put in that work in order to get to the point where they actually are the prize. So it's, like I said before, remember high status men, women, and low status men. Most men aren't actually the prize. Most men will go through life and the women that they date have far more optionality than they do. There's a couple of men at the top who are just like, they have the optionality that they actually have optionality with women. And these women think that they have the same optionality as their boyfriends, but they don't, because these women can't get that many men to commit, whereas these men can get infinite numbers of women to commit. And you see these guys all the time, these high earners, high performers, these guys like this, it's very rare. Dude, there's crazy studies I was seeing, like rates of infidelity drop the more money you make as a man. That's crazy. Dude, when you think about how crazy that is, like the men in the top 20th percentile are far more likely to get cheated on. That's fucking crazy. I was reading some of these studies and it's just mind-boggling when you see this stuff. It just really shows we are hairless murder apes that are only addicted to status. And so, I mean, that's just another example of what I was saying before. It's like, as men, we have to go through a rite of passage. We have to do all these things to make ourselves more attractive. And as a result of doing so, then eventually we become the prize. So it's a couple of things. Understand intersexual dynamics, male and female nature, but at the same time, lift yourself up to become a rarer and rarer object. If you understand that only, I believe, 17% of the U.S. population makes over $100,000 a year, make more money, get a scalable business, find some level of independence. And then also, dude, this is another thing I recommend to people. This is way off topic, but building a brand. If you build a brand, it helps your business and your dating life. Guys, if you build a brand, it gives you an optionality with dating and it helps your business. Building a brand is a great way. It's one of the things in Men of Action, we have 10 pillars, but we actually go over brand building in the program. And it just gives you so many options to be able to network. Like, for instance, there's huge celebrities I want to network with. Me being a performance coach, they're never going to talk to me. Me having a podcast, though, they have a reason to come on. And so what is that? That's part of brand building. So there's just all these different ways that you as a man, you can become. And so as you level up as a man, then you become the prize. And then the thing is, you have to recognize you are the prize. So what happens often is you'll have, a woman who's in her early 20s, maybe you're in your early 20s. Let's say you guys get married together around 27. What happens is the two of you get older. This is just a function of biology. You as a man, as you make more money and you become more seasoned, you become more attractive, and she doesn't. She's just not going to become more. It's just a function of biology. Get mad at me as you want. Her options are going to get less and less. And what happens is the concept of the mutiny that Orion Taraban talks about is in the book, The Value of Others. He's like, you started off in the relationship and these were the rules. And as it got older, as the two of you got older, she started changing the rules in the relationship. And you start seeing these high status, super accomplished men just being beaten down by their wives because she's mutiny. She's the mutiny now, or she's the mutineer. She's trying to change the direction of the relationship. And so you have a decision to make. Do I end this relationship now? Do I quash the mutiny? What happened to mutineers, back in the 1500s? They'd walk the plank. You know what I'm saying? You kick them off the boat. So that's kind of the situation where we are now, where it's like you see these men who are highly accomplished, wealthy, they got everything going for them. And then they have wives who are like telling them what to do. Dr. Phil would be a great example. Dr. Phil saying that his wife said that he was superfluous. Stuff like crazy, like the man's worth $400 million and his wife runs his life. Like that kind of stuff would be a great example where you'd see like this guy is in a situation where he would be this incredible high status man. But what's happened is in his relationship, there's been a mutiny and he didn't see it coming. And so that's one of the things we have to understand is when you're very successful as a man, Steven Crowder would be another example of this, where it's like he gets married to a woman, makes a bunch of money, has no prenup, and then she eventually like wants to divorce him and he has no way to defend himself. That's where he's put himself. Because why is that? Because he had very little experience with women. He didn't understand sexual dynamics. He married the first woman he had sex with. And because of that, he's been taken advantage of because he just didn't understand the opposite gender. And so that's where men end up doing. So if you work so much on success and money and don't understand women, you become what's called a financial target. And so that's something that men also have to be aware of.
What's the number one skill set that a guy in his mid to late 20s should focus on if he wants to break into, I think you said 17% of people make six figures, which is just shocking because it almost seems like you can just almost fall into making 10K a month these days. Like I mean, by accident, like you can just, make that. But
Frank, I promise you, there are people who listen to what you just said and they think you're a fucking liar and a scam artist for saying that. Even though you and I know it's true. I know 50 different industries where, you could online sitting at home, you could make 10K a month. You're exactly right. There are people listening to you right now who think you're a liar. They're like, there's no way.
In less than 90 days, if you worked 4 hours a day for 90 days,
absolutely
doing one thing online, focus on one. So what's the number one skill set that a guy that hears that doesn't believe it or whatever wants to break through? What's the skill set that he needs to be focusing on developing?
So the skill set, before we get to the skill set, this is what I would tell you. Do you have a job right now, if you're listening to this, that makes more than Uber Eats? If you don't have a job that makes more than being an Uber Eats driver, become an Uber Eats driver because you can put these things in your ear and you listen to audiobooks, tons of audiobooks and podcasts and YouTube videos that will help you educate yourself to figure out what is the problem that you want to solve. If you want $1,000 an hour, you need to solve $1,000 an hour problem. Okay. You know what attorneys are? People think attorneys are litigators, barristers, whatever. No, attorneys are problem solvers. You only hire an attorney for one reason, to make problems go away. That's why you hire them. Attorneys are problem solvers. So what do they get? $1,000 an hour, $2,000 an hour. That's why attorneys get paid so much, is because they're problem solvers. So the thing I'm going to tell you is, number one, get addicted to audiobooks. Number two, start speaking the language of problem solving. Okay. You want like the easy skill set? Yes, I would say telephone sales is probably the easiest way. If you're young, get really good at telephone sales or Zoom, online Zoom sales. Get really good at that, at becoming, like, get to the point where you're a setter or closer for some company. Doing that is probably the way where you're going to have money no matter what. You're going to learn about a bunch of different industries. I would also recommend learning how to code. That's a big one. Although that's going to be, rather than learning how to code, learn how to use AI in order to help you to code. I would recommend learning copywriting. Like, those are the easiest ones. If you learn coding in order to build a funnel, if you learn copywriting and you learn telephone sales, those are the skill sets where you're always going to be in demand. I know somebody wants to hear me say, no, go into solar or Amazon FBA. The fact that I'm even bringing those things up, like real estate or crypto or whatever, they're already saturated industries. They're already like super saturated. Your net sale, like quality closers will never be saturated. I can never hire enough. It's like NFL quarterbacks. I can never hire enough quality closers. Okay. So that would be a place where I would say someone who's young, learn how to become a closer would be a really great way to be able to level up when you're young, because you learn so many things from getting into sales. But like I said before, the main thing you need to do, I recommend, is you guys need to get addicted to audiobooks, double speed audiobooks, take notes, just run through the entire Alex Hormozi, Russell Brunson collection, just run through all of this stuff, learn how to create an offer, learn how to create a business, and then find mentors. You can find mentors through books. I absolutely encourage. It's so funny because people are like, Tai Lopez is a scam. You want to know why you know Tai Lopez is not a scam? Because Tai Lopez sells a course And Ty Lopez, if he was a scam artist, you know what he wouldn't be doing? Buying courses. He spends millions of dollars buying other people's courses, including mine, by the way. Why is it he does that? Because he understands he buys courses to be able for himself to level up. It's something I do in our company. We have continuing education. Right now, we're going through a 10-month YouTube course. All of us in the company are going through. We're always buying courses from other people, especially when you consider coursework in comparison to like college education. College education is so bloated and incredibly expensive in comparison to what you get. You could take a 10X conference. There's so many people out there that can teach you. Jordan Belfort, and so many people who can teach you. Russell Brunson, Cole Gordon, Jeremy Minor. I do name 100 people right now who could teach. Wes Watson's teaching people how to start their own fitness brands. There's so many people right now who could make so much money from buying a course from someone else as opposed to paying outrageous tuition to a university that gives you a skill set that doesn't make you any money. So that's another thing I would do. It's just try to learn as much as you can from the free content that's out there, then find the ones that you really, really resonate with. And then I would take their course.
I love the sales closer too, get the reps in, like high volume sales early on in your career, develop the reps, develop the skill sets. Then you can transition into higher ticket service or high ticket sales like real estate, but try to break your way into real estate without having the core skill sets of communication, influence, closing, all these things, networking. Build those skills, build your career up, and then maybe you kind of venture out into some of these other parallels.
I think something like 95% of like home transactions are done by 15% of real estate agents. Something like 85% of real estate agents in Clark County have not made a single sale. Guys, do you understand? We could lose 90% of real estate agents and we'd have plenty of real estate agents. We could lose 90% of actors and we'd have plenty of actors. These are the places where people want to go. These are again, ladies, you're just now just finding out about OnlyFans. You're 5 years too late. Sorry, that would completely saturated market unless you've already built a brand. So a lot of people are trying to jump into certain industries because they heard about it, but they're already behind.
Yeah, they said the average guy out there should also focus on building a brand. So let's say we got a guy living in the Midwest listening to the show. Works in finance. Maybe he sells life insurance, doing well, right? He's making a high 6-figure salary, got his life. Maybe hasn't found the woman, so he's looking to build that part of his life up. What does a brand look like for somebody that's outside of like the online space? I think a lot of people will hear that and be like, I don't need a brand because I don't run a business online. But for somebody that runs a brick and mortar or is working in more of a corporate environment, what does their brand even look like?
When you think about like even with like Progressive Insurance or State Farm, there's like a pitch man, right? There's like Stan from State Farm or whatever it is, Flo or whatever the name. You're looking for an individual. People just generally don't buy from brands. They buy from Ronald McDonald. They buy from something that they can identify with. And so building a brand, like for instance, let's say you're the guy you were mentioning before who's in finance. He should maybe have like a live stream he does every couple of weeks or maybe a Zoom call with some prospective clients where he explains some of the pitfalls of what could happen if they don't get their finance set up in a certain way, how inflation might eat their net worth up, stuff like that. He does that for a while. He becomes such an expertise. He shows such a level of expertise that people stop listening to his show and say, hey, man, you're going to handle my finance. I have a friend of mine, one of my clients, he's an accountant, and he started hosting Zoom calls where he would go over pitfalls in accounting to the point where people were just like, I surrender. You do my accounting. I can't do this. He's trying to teach people. Well, all he does is, number one, he shows the complexity of the industry. And number two, he shows his subject matter expertise, which eventually causes everyone to buy his product, everyone to hire him for his services. That's what I did with Men of Action. That's what this finance guy, that's what I would do with my brand. Secondarily, it's clips and collaborations. I would collaborate with people who have bigger followings to grow my following. And I would make clips, meaning 30, 60, 90-second clips that are going to go up on YouTube, Snapchat. They're going to go up on Twitter. They're going to go up on Facebook and go up on Instagram. That's the other thing I would do in order to build my brand.
Love that. Love that. Last couple questions here, Michael. Maybe one just about your ability to retain and regurgitate information. You talked about reading 40, 50 books a year. Highly recommend to the guys out there, get plugged in. You have a skill set though, and I don't know if you identify it as a skill set. Maybe it's just natural to you, but your ability to retain a lot of information. I mean, at the beginning of the podcast, dropping data and stats and kind of all the percentages. Is that something you've focused in on? Was it just kind of a gift that you've always kind of had it? Or is there a formula that you have when you research and consume information that allows you to retain it at the level that you do?
This is the thing. This is the way I try to describe it to people. So the data that you hear me regurgitating is always three-dimensional in my head. I know this sounds kind of weird, but it's never just numbers. Like I can actually, like for instance, when I said the top 10% of men get 63% of the right swipes, I actually see a chart where it's like 10, I see what those 10% of men look like, and I see the 63%. It's really hard. Like people are always confused how I remember names so well. The reason why I remember names is because Frank Rich has a shape to it. The F has a shape. Like I just remember things in three dimensions, and that's something that's been really helpful to me. I remember girls through their Instagram handles sometimes. This is like just stuff like that happens where I remember a lot of these facts and figures that I regurgitate. I believe more than 50% of the Earth's population today lives on less than $5 a day. Well, I can think in my mind, I can see that 50% of people living on less, like those aren't just numbers. They're three-dimensional objects in my brain. That's the reason why.
Is that something you discovered about yourself, or is that something that you learned and picked up and said, I'm going to leverage and use this to my advantage?
I don't know the answer, but I do know that it was very helpful for me in the military as an Air Force navigator. Like maps were something that were really easy for me to understand. The idea of air refueling. So I'm a navigator. I set up ARs, air refuelings between the refueler and the receiver. And so I would actually, in my mind, I would see, okay, we're going at 080. That's the heading. Me and the F-16 have to be going in the same direction. I tell them the airspeed is 720. I indicated. I tell them the altitude. They need to be 1,000 feet below, or in 1 mile, or 500 feet below and 1 mile back. And like I describe, but in my mind, I can see all these things happening. They're not just numbers in my head. If that makes any sense. I just do, at no point are they text numbers on a piece of paper in my mind. They're actually three-dimensional shapes. And that's one thing that's been able to help me. I can actually see in my mind the optionality that women believe they have, and the optionality that, like, I can see it in my mind, if that makes any sense. It's not just words that I'm regurgitating.
That's fascinating, man. I love that. Talk to us real quick, Mike, about MOA mentoring and what it's about, who's it for, how you've kind of grown it, and then, where the guys can learn more about it. We'll wrap it up with the last couple of questions.
If you cannot replace your dating life, your social life, and your job in 15 minutes, you don't have enough abundance. I want you to become the man that every one of his friends meets their girlfriend through. Every one of your friends meets their boyfriend through. Every one of your friends should be getting their job through you, meeting their employees through you. You should be the center of the network. You should be the social hub of your entire friend group. That's what I want for you. I want everyone in your life to benefit from just knowing you because of your network. Okay. In doing so, we use the term, this is kind of a misnomer. We call it local celebrity. Local celebrity, what that means is a real famous person, like a 10 would be like The Rock. Okay. That would be a 10, a very famous person, Tom Cruise. We want you to be like, if he's a 10 out of 10, we want you to be like a 1 or a 2 out of 10. We want you to be famous enough to where every time you walk into a restaurant, the chef and the maitre d' knows who you are. Every time you go to any nightclub in your city, you immediately skip the line and go in. We want every single attractive woman in the city to at least see your face at one point or another on social media because of the brand you built or because of your social media account. We want to build a certain level of local celebrity so that you can be the ultimate networker. We want to level up your life when it comes to networking, communication, leadership, and dating. Those are the areas that we're going to work on. We also work on, obviously, evolutionary psychology, critical thinking. We go over things like event planning. There's other things that we go in, like a winning mindset. But the main ones, the main categories I want to know that you're going to level up in, we're going to take action in. That's why it's called Men of Action. With networking, communication, leadership, and dating. If you're having any issues in those places, the part of the reason why you're having those issues is because when you go out into the world, into traditional media, and you ask for help, they give you terrible advice. Women, however, they don't care that you're getting bad advice. They want you to just get it. Your employer wants you to get it. My job as a performance coach is to teach you to get it because the world isn't going to teach you. And so that's what you're going to get with MOA mentoring.
Basically becoming a resource and a problem solver for everybody that you come in contact. And
dealing with high status people, you speak the language of problem solving. That's it. You are a problem solver. When you become a problem solver, you get invited to everything. It's not an accident that I get invited to everyone's birthday party, or when I have my birthday party, I have hundreds of people show up. It's because I've solved problems for most.
Got it. MOAmentoring.com, Michael Sartain handle across all the platforms, podcast, Michael Sartain show.
It's just Michael Sartain podcast. Yeah. If you guys want to be offended, like play it at work and just piss off all your fellow employees. Yeah. Michael Sartain said that we're all hairless murder apes. Yeah, just piss. You guys want to have a great time, go to work, take the headphones off and just play the Michael Sartain podcast all day long. just, HR will be called on you soon.
Incredible. Love that. Guys, we'll have all of Michael's stuff plugged down there. Check out the MOA mentoring group.
One other thing I want to say, you're aware of School, the new, it's like Circle or Discord. If you guys want to go to school.com, SKOOL.com/men of action free, men-of-action-free. So there's a hyphen in between each word. If you go there, you can join our free group. By the way, we did have 5,000 members in their group. We got rid of 3,000 members because they weren't taking any fucking action, Frank. We don't tolerate that in this organization. If you don't take action, we don't need you. And that includes our free group. I want you to consider how hard it is in our paid group. If you're in our free group and we get rid of you when you don't take action, just imagine what happens to you if you're in our paid group. If you're somebody, you just keep falling off the wagon when it comes to your diet. You can't quit drinking or smoking for whatever reason. You keep turning into you keep leading with money when it comes to women, and you cannot get out of your own way when it comes to business. This is the right program for you. The world does not teach you to get it. It is my fucking job to teach you to get it.
I love that. Guys, we'll have the free school down there. We'll have all of Michael's links and socials across the board. I love that. It's such an abundance mindset, Michael. It's like, if you're not here, even in the free stuff, get the hell out of here. We don't want you in our world. We don't want you in our...
We just purged 2,700 guys from our free group because they weren't doing shit.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Last question, Michael. We like to end here with the same question for everybody. The title of the show is called The Superhuman Life. As we wrap this up, we've had a great conversation around value, status, how men can level up. How would Michael Sartain define living a superhuman life?
To me, rescue as many animals as possible. Animal rescue is like probably the number one charity I'm involved with. There's 4 rescued animals in this room I'm in right now. So I rescue cats. Like, that's the main thing I do. I live in a high rise. I think it's kind of hard to have dogs in a high rise, but I work with Downtown Dog Rescue in Los Angeles, Stray Cat Alliance in Los Angeles. I work with Foster Friday Foundation in Las Vegas. Any kind of animal rescue thing I'm really, really big into. And the other one is underprivileged children. So they don't have the same head start. It's not their fault they were born poor. So I work with the Midnight Mission in Los Angeles. It's a homeless shelter out there, and we try to help as many people as possible. And then the other charity I work with is I try to do as much as I can with them. It's called the Shade Tree here in Las Vegas, and it's for domestic abuse and human trafficking to try to stop stuff like that. So I think for me, making millions of dollars is not worth as much to me as being able to help charities that actually help other people. And I see the way it goes. A great charity I recommend you guys check out is Trina's Kids. That's another really good one. It's my buddy Dan Fleischman is involved with that. He builds backpacks through Model Citizen Fund. Backpacks have all these supplies for people who are in orphanages, people in domestic abuse shelters, and homeless people. So basically, it's like a survival kit that he gives in these backpacks, and he donates them himself. So he'll collect the resources for the backpack. He handles all the administration costs. 100% of the resources in the backpack go to these homeless people, and then this guy worth hundreds of millions of dollars, physically delivers the backpacks himself. So it's a really, really great charity. So for me, helping other people is the only superhuman life. That's the only thing that matters to me is helping.
That's amazing, man. We do 10% off the top of one of our course sales goes directly to anti-human trafficking here. We have another organization in the same field. It's closely tied to pornography, which is what got me to it. But that's our big charity, five figures plus per year, to those 2 organizations. So I love that, man. That wasn't what I was expecting to end with here today, but I love it about it. It shows a lot of your character, your heart, who you are as a man. I think people will see the persona online and they wouldn't know. They wouldn't think that about you. So that's amazing, man. Keep doing what you're doing out there. Keep leading guys. Keep leveling up. Keep giving back as well. Like I no other response, man, other than I think that's absolutely amazing. So it's been a great conversation here today, Michael. Guys, check out Michael Sartain, MOA mentoring. All the free stuff is plugged down there in the show notes. You've got value out of this episode. You can support us in these 2 ways: ratings, reviews, as we ask you guys here every single week. But more importantly, if there's a guy in your life that is struggling with some of the things we discuss here, needs to hear this conversation, do us the favor and him the blessing by sharing today's conversation. But for Michael Sartain, your host, Frank Rich, we love you guys. See you in the next one.